Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for Zoobox. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I got a quick little movie review I want to do, just kind of no frills, just off the cuff. I want to talk about the recently released film Elvis. It's written and directed by Baz Luhrmann, also written by a bunch of other people. It stars Tom Hanks as the Colonel, as Colonel Tom Parker, and Austin Butler as Elvis, the man himself, Elvis Aaron Presley. And I just got home. I just got home from watching the movie, and I was kind of on such a high. I just wanted to discuss it a little bit. And since I'm a lonely weirdo, a lonely cinephile, okay, I saw the movie by myself. It was me and actually a pretty eclectic crowd. But the thing that I found really shocking, a ton of what seemed like high school age girls there, which I wasn't anticipating. Look, I hadn't really paid attention to this movie. I'm not a huge Baz Luhrmann fan. Like, I like a few of the things he's done in the past. I grew up watching like his version of Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio, Claire Danes, Moulin Rouge. What else? The Great Gatsby, when that came out, which is not a movie I particularly love. And actually, there's a review of it on the Zoobox main channel. If you want to go hop over there, I did a review of that film with my wife like a year ago because she's a big F. Scott Fitzgerald fan. So we watched the 70s version, and then we watched Baz Luhrmann's version. We kind of talked about them. But I'm not a big Baz Luhrmann guy. Like, I think I like respect him and respect his work more than I actually like it, because it's so overly theatrical, and a lot of his choices I find weird sometimes. They don't always connect with me. He has this kind of penchant, this desire to constantly bridge the past with the present. And kind of blending music and stuff like that from different eras together. And so I kind of went into Elvis being a little skeptical. I didn't really know what to expect from it. The trailer, I thought, looked like a Baz Luhrmann movie. And I'm not I'm not a diehard Elvis fan either. I like Elvis just fine, don't get me wrong. Especially, I kind of like actually his late career stuff. I really liked when he did that, like, kind of that religious gospel album. I think is fantastic. Even some of his live performances, the Vegas years, are electric. Like, they're incredible. Some of the best kind of solo live performer stuff that's ever been captured on film. It's really something else. He's an earnest person that really threw himself, every bit of his being, into his performances. Even so, more so than the actual songs themselves, it feels like most of the time. But he's imbuing them with such an energy. It's hard to not get caught up in it. Actually, when I got home, before I started doing this, I wasn't even sure if I was going to record a review. I was just kind of watching Elvis performances because I just seen the movie. And anyways, so let's just talk about the movie itself. The movie itself, I really enjoyed it. I had a really great time. It's a fucking blast. It's everything that I usually kind of don't like about Baz Luhrmann kind of worked here. It's not without its hokey moments, if you will, but I think Baz Luhrmann went into this movie with a goal. I think he's a big Elvis fan, number one, and I think he went in here with a goal to basically canonize Elvis as an American cultural saint. This is the idyllic version of Elvis. It's the perfect version of Elvis. It's the perfect American story. That's the way that they wanted to present Elvis in this movie, and I think they do it pretty successfully because, just through osmosis, cultural osmosis, or whatever, I know a lot about Elvis, like I think most people do. And we know a lot about the bad things that happened to Elvis, especially the last, 10 years of his life. We kind of have an awareness of that, and some of the bad things he did, some of his proclivities, etc. The movie definitely brushes over that stuff. It's not really interested in getting into the darker side of Elvis. Not really. It kind of couches everything in his relationship with Colonel Parker, played by Tom Hanks. And it's really kind of just about them. And in some ways, it ends up being about the art and commerce and the American dream, and those that would look to subvert the American dream and use it for nefarious purposes to line their own pockets, etc. And whether or not you actually care about somebody or whether you're using them because of their ambition, etc. That's kind of the main thrust of the film. That's the way it kind of structures every aspect of Elvis's life. Now, and not being an Elvis expert, I can't tell you like how accurate the movie is or inaccurate it is. I really don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that there's a lot of stuff. He had a very contentious relationship with Colonel Parker, at least towards the end of his life. I do know that. And I know that there was he basically, after Elvis died, the estate kind of like sued the shit out of Colonel Parker and kind of to get him away from the estate because he just was siphoning money. He was a gambler and stuff. But anyways, I think Baz Luhrmann, all of like his worst instincts actually worked really well in this movie because it's just a crackling experience. It's paced really well. It's almost 3 hours long, at least 2.5 hours of actually like sitting in the like watching the story proper, and it just starts with a bang and it just keeps going. It actually reminded me a lot of like of actually The Great Gatsby, his version of The Great Gatsby, but it just worked here, especially like I said earlier about the way he likes to kind of bring modern music into the past and vice versa. I think this is the most successful of his ventures doing stuff like that. More successful than Moulin Rouge, more successful than The Great Gatsby. It seems like it just fit the material. Like his big, larger than life, his big, like it's kind of garish and campy and fun and earnest, but it never tips the scales too far. It never goes too far. He does a really great job of balancing kind of melodrama and this kind of myth making that he's doing. Like he really is. He's making Elvis into a cultural icon more than he was already before. It's like reclaiming Elvis in the same way that, like, if you've watched Tarantino movies in the past few years, he does a little historical revisionism. Now it doesn't go quite that far, but the point of those things is to take kind of change things, change the nature of the iconography, and I think he does that successfully here. It's kind of an incredible theatrical experience. I don't know how I would feel about it maybe after the fact. Like I don't know if I were to watch this at home just on my TV like during the day or something, it might have fallen a little flat. But when you're in a theater, you get that giant fucking screen and Baz Luhrmann's doing his thing and everything's moving and crashing and the music and all that stuff. It's just phenomenal. It just works like fucking gangbusters in that format. The performances. Austin Butler is awesome. He's fantastic. Tom Hanks, awesome. Now you have to understand though. You have to go into this movie understanding it's more of a pastiche. You could even maybe say like kind of a fan-ish film to a certain degree, because it's not trying to be literal. It's very heightened. It's like a soap opera going 100 miles an hour. And the performances match that. They're perfect performances for this movie. I was especially impressed with Austin Butler. I don't know if I've actually even ever seen anything else with him. I must have. Okay, yeah, I've seen other things with him. He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay. The Dead Don't Die, I've seen that. The Carrie Diaries, I've never seen that. Oh, it looks like he might be in Dune Part 2. Exciting stuff. He was in the Shannara Chronicles, which I never watched. He was Will Armstrong in that. Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. So he's kind of like a TV guy. He was even in Arrow. Well, this should really bust him out into the mainstream. It's a phenomenal performance. He was all in on this. Especially when he's like performing the music itself. It's incredible because, like I said, I'm not the biggest Elvis fan, but I've watched a lot of live footage of Elvis performing because it's electric. And he really captures that spirit. Because it's not like a one-to-one like Elvis impression, but he captures the vibe and the feeling of Elvis, I think, more than I've ever seen anybody doing Elvis. Tom Hanks, again, the performance is a little broad, you could say, maybe even a little silly, but Tom Hanks really is able to sell it. He's really, really able to kind of he knows the job. He knows what he's there to do. And I think he does a great job of being kind of like the antagonist, the secret antagonist. He's kind of like the devil in a weird way, in the way that the movie kind of frames him and uses him, and the way that he takes advantage of Elvis over the years and kind of fucks him over and keeps him trapped in a gilded cage, as it were. And he does a great job. And there's a lot of even some layers to that performance that are surprising. I would even say the same thing with Elvis himself, Austin Butler. There are layers to the performance. There's an internal life going on that you usually don't find in something that happens to be like this kind of a broad experience. And I would, honestly, I would say that for most of the cast. Actually, most of the cast is really great. I'm trying to think of like anyone that sticks out in particular, but I'm not thinking of it. There was, it's not like a perfect movie. It's not a flawless movie by any means. I do think the length is not really an issue, but I definitely did start to feel it around like kind of the middle of the movie, which is, kind of normal where a movie has to slow down a little bit, start explaining things, setting up the third act, setting up all this stuff. So there's a lot of pieces that need to be moved around, a lot of logistical stuff that needs to happen so that you can go with Elvis on the rest of his journey. But like, like on first watch, it didn't bother me or anything, but I did acknowledge it. I did realize it. I wasn't so lost in the magic that it got away from me. What else? Yeah, like I said, the live performances are incredible. Honestly, I like, I don't usually say things like this, but Austin Butler will probably be nominated for an Academy Award for this performance. It's really something. It really is. He does a great job. Everybody does a great job. I can't remember. I mean, I was going to say I can't remember the last time I had this much fun in a movie. I do, actually. It was pretty recently. It was Top Gun Maverick. And if anybody were to tell me that halfway through the year, halfway through 2022, Elvis and Top Gun 2 would have been like two of my favorite movies of the year so far, I would not have believed you. Because I went into this very skeptical. I almost didn't really have an interest in seeing it. What pushed it over the edge for me was that my son is going to be born next week. So I'm like, well, I don't know when the next time I'm actually going to be able to go to a movie theater. And if I'm going to go see something, if I'm going to go see a movie, might as well go see something that would definitely benefit from that big screen experience. Because even though I'm not the biggest fan of Baz Luhrmann, I know that his material works best on the big screen. Like even when I saw The Great Gatsby back in 2012 or 2013, whenever it came out, I went with my wife and we watched it in 3D because it was kind of made to be watched in 3D, and we had a blast. We had a really good time at the theater watching the movie, even though the movie itself is kind of okay. I don't know how Elvis is going to hold up in the future. I will say that. I'm not sure how it's going to hold up, like watching it at home or just throughout the years. I really don't know. But as of right now, as a theatrical experience, which I think is key, go to a movie theater and see Elvis, because that's the best way to experience it. Like I would totally recommend that. I would say go out and go. You're going to be very surprised by how much fun you have. It does have, like I said, some hokey stuff in there. Baz Luhrmann really likes to fetishize African Americans in weird ways. Like specifically African Americans. It kind of makes a little bit more sense here because of Elvis's background and who Elvis is and kind of where he grew up and where his influences come from. It makes a little bit more sense, but just like there's a weirdness to the way that Baz Luhrmann does it. I can't really put my finger on it. When you watch it, you're just like the whole movie just fucking stops, and it's weird. Like I said, I can't quite articulate it. Sorry, it's kind of late. I'm a little tired. But I had a really great time, and I think you would too. I think if you're just like a film fan, if you're a music lover, especially if you're an Elvis fan, you're gonna have a great fucking time. It's just a good time at the movies, and I think this is kind of like the kind of thing that we need right now, just in the world, maybe in America specifically, coming off the past few years, something like Top Gun Maverick and Elvis. Just so you can like kind of feel good about where you live, where you're from. It's something else. Kind of reminds you of the exceptional nature of the United States in its own weird way. And yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope this made sense. I know it's kind of rambling, but such is life. All right, everybody. Talk to you later.